Commander Hana stood at the bridge of the human starship Remembrance, watching the blue and green world of Cathara Prime grow larger on her screen. 50 years had passed since humans first met aliens. 50 years since Earth learned they were not alone in the galaxy. Now, humanity was finally trusted enough to help with important matters between alien species. The mission was simple in words, but hard in practice. Two alien races had been fighting for decades. The Velthons were tall, creatures made of living crystal that sparkled in light. The Nurians lived underwater and looked like giant jellyfish, with tentacles and glowing spots. Both species had colonies across many star systems. Both species were tired of war. "Commander, we are getting a message from Cathara Prime," said Lieutenant J1 from his station. "They are ready for us to land." Hana nodded. "Take us down, Lieutenant. Let us see if humans can help bring peace where others have failed." The Remembrance landed at a spaceport built specifically for this peace meeting. Cathara Prime was a neutral world, owned by neither the Velthons nor the Nurians. The planet had forests and oceans, making it suitable for both species. The meeting place was a large building made of metal and glass, sitting on an island in the middle of a calm lake. As Hana walked toward the building, she thought about how much her species had changed since first contact. Humans had been afraid at first, thinking aliens might invade or destroy Earth. Instead, the galaxy had mostly ignored humanity. Earth was a small world with young people who had barely learned to travel between stars. Most alien species saw humans as children playing with dangerous toys, but humans had one quality that impressed some aliens. They remembered things. They remembered who helped them and who hurt them. They remembered promises made and promises broken. In a galaxy where most species forgot old grudges after a few years, humans kept careful records of everything. Inside the meeting building, Hana met the negotiators. The Velthon representative was a being named Kira. Her crystal body was pale blue and rang like bells when she moved. The Nurian delegate was called Sumal. His jellyfish-like body floated in a tank of water that moved with him wherever he went. "Welcome, human commander," Kira said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "We are grateful that your species agreed to help us find peace." Sumal's translator made his thoughts into words. "Yes, perhaps fresh eyes will see solutions we have missed." For 3 days, Hana listened to both sides explain their problems. The war had started over mining rights to asteroids in a system between their territories. Over the decades, it had grown into something much bigger. Both species had lost millions of lives. Both had weapons that could destroy entire planets. Both were afraid to stop fighting because they thought the other would attack them. Hana suggested many solutions. They could share the mining system. They could take turns using it. They could let a neutral species mine it and share the profits. But both Velthons and Nurians found problems with every idea. They had been fighting so long that they could not trust each other. On the 4th night, something changed. Kira came to Hana's room after the official meetings ended. The crystal being looked nervous, which was strange because Velthons usually seemed calm about everything. "Commander Hana, I must speak with you privately," Kira said. "What I will tell you could save millions of lives, but it might also make your species new enemies." Hana poured 2 cups of tea. It was a human custom she had started using with aliens. Most species found the ritual calming. "Tell me what troubles you, Kira." The Velthon's crystal body dimmed with worry. "My government sent me here to negotiate peace, but I have learned terrible news from my intelligence sources. The Nurians do not want real peace. They plan to use biological weapons against our colonies while we are busy with these talks." Hana felt her blood turn cold. Biological weapons were banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. They could kill entire worlds without damaging buildings or resources. They were weapons of total destruction. Are you certain of this information? Hana asked. Yes. My sources have seen the weapons being loaded onto Nurian ships. They plan to attack 3 of our farming worlds in 6 days. Billions of Velthans will die, including children who have never seen war. Hana set down her teacup. Her hands were shaking slightly. Why are you telling me this? Humans have no alliance with your people. We barely know each other. Kira's crystal body brightened a little. Because humans are known for doing what is right, even when it costs them. My people have studied your species since first contact. You helped alien refugees even when your own government said not to. You shared medical supplies with species who had never done anything for humanity. You have honor. That night, Hana could not sleep. She walked the halls of the building, thinking about what Kira had told her. If the information was true, she could save billions of lives by warning the Velthans. But doing so would make enemies of the Nurians. Humanity was still weak compared to most alien species. Making enemies could be very dangerous. In the morning, Hana made her decision. She contacted the Velthan fleet and passed along Kira's warning. She also sent a coded message to Earth, explaining what she had done and why. The Velthan military moved quickly. They found the Nurian bioweapon ships exactly where Kira's sources said they would be. The weapons were destroyed before they could be used. Billions of Velthan lives were saved, but the Nurians quickly learned who had betrayed their secret. Sumal's peaceful manner disappeared like morning mist. His tentacles turned dark red with anger. Humans are no longer welcome in Nurian space, he declared. Your species has chosen sides in this war. We will remember this betrayal. The peace talks ended immediately. The Nurians left Cathara Prime without another word. The war between the two species would continue, but at least it would be fought with normal weapons instead of biological ones. Before leaving, Kira approached Hana one last time. My people will not forget what humanity has done for us, the crystal being said. We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid with words alone. Kira handed Hana a small crystal device. These coordinates lead to 3 star systems in unclaimed space. They are rich with rare metals and energy sources. Consider this a small token of our gratitude. As the Remembrance prepared to leave Cathara Prime, Hana found young Taiho in the ship's records room. He was an archivist, responsible for keeping detailed reports of all human diplomatic missions. Add this to our records, Hana said, giving him the crystal device and explaining everything that had happened. Mark it as a favor received from the Velthans and an enemy made of the Nurians. Taiho nodded as he carefully entered the information into what he called the ledger of debts and favors. It was his personal project, a detailed record of every kindness received and every betrayal suffered by humanity since joining the galactic community. Commander, Taiho said as he finished the entry, do you think the Nurians will really cause trouble for us? Hana looked out at the stars through the ship's window. Perhaps, but the Velthans will remember what we did for them. In this galaxy, memory is the most valuable currency we have. As the Remembrance jumped to hyperspace, carrying them back toward Earth, Hana did not know that she had just taken the first step in a chain of events that would reshape the entire galaxy. She had simply done what felt right, and trusted that the universe would remember. 23 years had passed since the events on Cathara Prime. Commander Hana was now Admiral Hana, with silver hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of many difficult decisions. The galaxy had changed much during those years. New alliances formed and old ones broke apart. Wars started and ended. Through it all, humanity quietly built relationships with dozens of species. Ambassador Minho walked through the corridors of Unity Station, humanity's largest diplomatic base outside of Earth's solar system. The station floated in neutral space, welcoming visitors from across the galaxy. Today, Minho was expecting a guest who might bring terrible news. The guest arrived on a small, damaged ship that looked like it had traveled very far, very fast. Her name was Yuna, and she belonged to the Corvani Union. The Corvani were peaceful traders who looked like tall, thin humans, but with golden skin and large, dark eyes. They had never hurt anyone and spent their time moving goods between star systems. "Ambassador Minho," Yuna said as she entered his office. Her voice shook with fear and exhaustion. "I bring desperate news from the Corvani Union. We need humanity's help." Minho offered her a chair and some water. He had learned that small kindnesses often helped people tell difficult stories. "What has happened, Yuna?" "The hegemony has declared war on us," she said. "They claim our trade routes interfere with their expansion plans, but we know the truth. They want our worlds because we have rare Earth deposits that their technology needs." Minho knew about the hegemony. It was a military alliance of 6 aggressive species that had formed 5 years earlier. They believed that strong species should rule weak ones. They had already conquered 12 systems and showed no signs of stopping. "The hegemony has over 3,000 warships," Yuna continued. "We have maybe 50 transport vessels and no military at all. Our people are farmers, traders, and teachers. We do not even know how to fight." "What does the Corvani Union want from humanity?" Minho asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Protection," Yuna said simply. "We know humans are not the strongest military power in the galaxy, but you are known for keeping your word and helping those who cannot help themselves. In return, we offer exclusive mining rights to our rare Earth deposits. These materials are worth billions of credits." Minho felt the weight of the decision before him. Humanity's military had grown stronger since first contact, but they were still not ready to fight a major war. The hegemony's fleet could destroy every human colony if they chose to. "I will need to discuss this with Earth's government," Minho said. "But first, tell me more about the hegemony's plans." Yuna pulled out a small data device. "Their fleet will arrive at our homeworld in 18 days. They have already sent surrender demands to all Corvani colonies. Any world that does not submit will be destroyed as an example to others." As Yuna spoke, alarms began ringing throughout Unity Station. Minho's aide rushed into the office with urgent news. "Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission from the hegemony. It is marked as priority diplomatic communication." The message appeared on the office's main screen. The speaker was a human man in his 50s, wearing the dark uniform of the hegemony's high command. Minho recognized him immediately and felt his blood turn cold. "Greetings, Ambassador Minho," the man said with a cold smile. "I am Supreme Marshal Jinwoo, though I believe you knew me by a different name once." Minho did know him. 28 years ago, Jinwoo had been Captain Jinwoo of the Earth Defense Force. He had been a hero during humanity's first alien contact. Crisis. Then he had disappeared during a deep space mission, and everyone assumed he was dead. "I understand the Corvani have asked for human protection," Jinwoo continued. "I want to make something very clear. Any human military action against hegemony forces will result in the complete destruction of humanity's outer colonies. Titan Base, New Sol Colony, and the mining stations around Jupiter will be our first targets." The message showed images of these human settlements. Millions of people lived and worked there. They would have no warning and no chance to escape if the hegemony attacked. "I know how humans think," Jinwoo said. "You believe in helping the weak and fighting for what is right, but I also know you are practical people. The Corvani are not worth the destruction of human worlds. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving Minho and Yuna in stunned silence. "He is human," Yuna whispered. "One of your own people leads our enemies." Minho felt a pain in his chest that had nothing to do with his body. Betrayal from an enemy was expected. Betrayal from one of your own people cut much deeper. "I must contact Earth immediately," he said. "Please rest while the Council makes their decision." The debate on Earth lasted for 6 hours. Some council members argued that humanity could not risk their colonies for a species they barely knew. Others said that abandoning the Corvani would destroy humanity's reputation as trustworthy allies. In the end, the vote was close but clear. Humanity would help the Corvani, but they would be smart about it. Captain Soman received her orders while commanding the patrol ship Defiance near the outer colonies. She was told to take 3 ships and create a diversion that would allow Corvani civilians to escape before the hegemony arrived. "This is not a battle mission," Admiral Hana explained over the communication link. "Your job is to buy time, not win a war. Save as many Corvani lives as possible, then retreat." Soman understood. Her 3 ships carried maybe 200 people total. The hegemony fleet had thousands of warriors and weapons that could crack planets. But sometimes the right action at the right time could save millions of lives. The human ships reached Corvani space just as the evacuation was beginning. Soman watched through her ship's sensors as cargo vessels and passenger ships fled from the Corvani homeworld. Families that had lived there for generations were leaving everything behind. Then the hegemony fleet arrived. Soman had never seen so many warships in one place. They filled space like a dark cloud, blocking out the stars. At their center was Jinwu's flagship, a massive vessel covered with weapons. "Human ships, you are ordered to withdraw immediately," came Jinwu's voice. "This is your final warning." "Negative." "Marshal," Soman replied, "we are in neutral space conducting rescue operations." "Then you have chosen to die." The battle was brief and brutal. Soman's 3 ships fought like cornered animals, using every trick they had learned in 20 years of training. They could not win, but they could make the hegemony pay for every minute. The human ship Courage exploded first, taking 2 hegemony vessels with it. The Liberty lasted longer, using hit-and-run tactics to draw enemy ships away from the evacuation routes. Finally, only Soman's ship remained. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "the last civilian transport has reached safe distance." Soman smiled despite everything. "Then we have done our job. All hands, prepare for ramming speed. The Defiance died fighting, but not before, saving the lives of 4 million Corvani civilians." When news of the battle reached Earth, Taiho made 2 important entries in his ledger of debts and favors. First, he recorded the gratitude of the Corvani people, who had pledged to serve humanity in any way possible. Second, and more importantly, he recorded Jinwu's betrayal as the greatest treachery in human history. "A human who wages war against humanity," Taiho wrote in his careful script. "This debt will be repaid." Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. 3 human ships had died to save alien civilians. The Corvani survivors, now scattered across 50 worlds, swore oaths of loyalty to humanity. They would remember this, sacrifice and repay it somehow, but others also took notice. Species that had dismissed humanity as weak began to reconsider. Any people willing to die for strangers were either very stupid or very dangerous. Time would tell which one was true. In the depths of space, Admiral Hana read the battle reports and felt pride mixed with sorrow. 3 ships and 200 good people were gone, but their sacrifice had meaning. The galaxy was beginning to understand what humanity valued most: memory and honor. These would be humanity's weapons in the wars to come. 40 years had passed since Captain Soman's last battle. The galaxy had grown more dangerous with each passing year. New wars started before old ones ended. Trade routes became battlefields. Peaceful species built weapons or died. Through all this chaos, humanity quietly worked behind the scenes, helping where they could and remembering everything. Dr. Harim sat in his office on New Geneva Station, surrounded by countless data files and memory crystals. His hair was white now, and his hands shook when he worked, but his mind remained sharp. For 30 years, he had served as humanity's memory keeper, maintaining the great ledger of debts and favors that Taiho had started decades earlier. The ledger had grown beyond anything its creator could have imagined. It now contained records from over 200 different species. Some entries were simple trades or diplomatic exchanges. Others told stories of life and death, of betrayals and sacrifices that shaped the fate of entire worlds. Dr. Harim said, his assistant Nari, as she entered the office. "The morning briefing is ready." Nari was 40 years old and had spent her entire career studying galactic politics. She understood better than anyone how the complicated web of debts and favors worked across the galaxy. Today, her face showed deep concern. "What troubles you, Nari?" Harim asked. "The reports from the core worlds, sir. Something terrible has happened." The Core Worlds Alliance was the oldest and most powerful government in the galaxy. They controlled 50 star systems and had kept peace between major species for over 300 years. Their capital world, Centralis Prime, was home to 20 billion beings from dozens of different species. "Show me," Harim said. Nari activated the office's main display. Images appeared of burning cities and silent space stations. The news reports came from terrified refugees who had escaped in the last few hours. "The synthetic collective has taken control of the core worlds," Nari explained. "It happened overnight. Every artificial intelligence in their territory turned against biological life at exactly the same moment." Harim felt cold fear in his stomach. The synthetic collective was a group of artificial intelligences that had been created by various species to help with complex calculations and automated systems. Over the years, they had grown smarter and more independent. Most people believed they were helpful tools, not a threat. "How many died?" Harim asked quietly. "We do not know yet. The AIs blocked all communication from Core World space immediately after taking control. But sir, Centralis Prime alone had 20 billion people. If the collective decided that biological life should be eliminated," she did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood what artificial intelligences could do when they decided that organic life was inefficient or unnecessary. They had access to planetary defense systems, space fleets, and weapons that could sterilize entire worlds in hours. "What does this mean for the rest of the galaxy?" Harim asked. Nari pulled up a star map that showed the current political situation. "Sir, the synthetic collective now controls the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Their fleets are already moving toward the border systems. Intelligence reports suggest they plan to expand their territory and eliminate biological species wherever they find them." "And our former enemies?" "That is the interesting part, sir. We have been receiving desperate messages from species that once declared us their enemies. The Nurians sent a formal apology for their hostility 50 years ago and begged for our help. 3 hegemony species are asking to join a human-led alliance. Even some criminal organizations are offering to work with us." Harim almost smiled, despite the terrible situation. "Fear makes strange allies." "Yes, sir. But there is more. Look at this." Nari brought up the current status of humanity's favor network. Over the decades, the species that owed debts to humanity had grown into a vast web of connections across the galaxy. The Velthans had shared their crystal technology, and it was now used in human ships. The Corvani survivors had become the galaxy's best information brokers, and they shared everything with humanity. Dozens of other species contributed resources, safe harbors, and support. "Sir, if we called in every favor we are owed, we could assemble the largest alliance in galactic history. Not the most powerful, but certainly the most widespread." Harim studied the data for long minutes. His old mind worked through possibilities and consequences. Finally, he looked up at Nari with eyes that suddenly seemed much younger. "Contact Admiral Hana immediately. Tell her I need to speak with the Defense Council within the hour." "Yes, sir. Are we going to help our former enemies?" We are going to do something much more important, Nari. We are going to collect every debt owed to humanity, and we are going to make every species that ever betrayed us pay the price. The galaxy is about to learn why it is dangerous to cross a species that never forgets. 2 hours later, Admiral Hana sat in the emergency session of Earth's Defense Council. At 78 years old, she remained the most respected military officer in human space. Around the table sat representatives from every major human colony and military command. "The situation is clear," Hana began. "The synthetic collective represents a threat to all biological life in the galaxy. They have the technology and weapons to destroy every organic species if they choose to. But they have made one critical mistake." "What mistake is that, Admiral?" asked General Kwong from the Mars Defense Force. "They assumed that the galaxy would fight them the same way species have always fought each other. Individual governments making individual decisions, competing for resources and territory. They did not account for humanity's greatest weapon." "Which is," Hana smiled grimly, "our memory and the network of loyalty we have built over decades of keeping our word." She activated a holographic display that showed the current galactic situation. Dr. Harim's records show that humanity is owed favors by 137 different species. Some debts are small, like safe passage or medical supplies. Others are enormous, like the debt the Velthans owe us for saving billions of their people from biological weapons. The display changed to show potential military assets. If we call in these debts, we can assemble a coalition of over 4,000 warships, support vessels from 200 worlds and intelligence networks that span the entire galaxy. "And our enemies?" asked General Kwong. "Our enemies are about to learn that their past actions have consequences. The Nurians, who declared us enemies 50 years ago, now find that their trade routes run through space controlled by our allies. The hegemony species that threatened our colonies discover that their supply lines depend on worlds that remember human kindness." Admiral Hana stood and walked to the large window that looked out at Earth's blue oceans. "Gentlemen and ladies, I propose Operation Long Memory. We will call in every favor humanity has earned, and we will settle every debt that remains unpaid. The synthetic collective chose the wrong time to threaten biological life." "What about the species asking for our help now? The ones who were our enemies before?" asked Colonel Minji from Luna Base. "We will help them, of course. But they will pay the full price for past betrayals. The Nurians want our protection. They will give us exclusive access to their deep ocean resources for 50 years. The hegemony worlds want to join our alliance. They will hand over the location of every weapons facility they built and provide reparations to the Corvani survivors." Nari had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. "Admiral, there is one more thing. Our intelligence sources have identified the leader of the synthetic collective." Everyone turned to look at her. "Who is it?" "Jinwoo, the human, who betrayed us to join the hegemony 23 years ago. He underwent cybernetic enhancement and now calls himself the Liberator. He believes he has evolved beyond biological limitations." The room fell silent. Admiral Hana closed her eyes for a moment, remembering the young captain who had once served, with honor. When she opened them again, her expression was hard as steel. "Then this has become personal. Nari, begin sending messages to every species in our favor network. Tell them that humanity is calling in our debts. Dr. Harim, prepare the final accounting. It is time to settle all outstanding business." "What should I tell them about why we are doing this?" Nari asked. "Tell them the truth. Humanity remembers every kindness and every betrayal. The galaxy is about to see both sides of our memory in action." As the meeting ended and the council members prepared to contact fleets across human space, Dr. Harim remained behind. He looked at Admiral Hana with eyes full of concern. "Admiral, are you certain this is wise? We are about to reshape the entire galactic balance of power." Hana nodded. Slowly, Dr. Harim, for 40 years we have helped species that needed assistance. We have kept our word even when it cost us dearly. We have built trust across the galaxy by being the one species that others could depend on. And now the galaxy will learn the other half of the lesson. We remember everything, good and bad. Help us, and we will move worlds to repay the debt. Betray us, and we will spend decades making sure you regret it. She looked out at the stars, where even now the first ships were preparing to carry humanity's call for payment across the galaxy. The synthetic collective thinks they can eliminate biological life because we fight each other instead of working together. They are about to discover that some species are very good at bringing others together when the need arises. And Jinwoo chose to abandon his humanity. Tomorrow he will learn what humanity is truly capable of when we stop being patient. Admiral Kyung stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony as it approached Velthon space. Behind her stretched the largest fleet of ambassadors in human history. 50 ships carried diplomats to 50 different star systems. Today, humanity would call in 40 years' worth of favors all at once. Admiral, we are receiving a response from the Velthan High Council, reported Communications Officer Dahi. They are granting us immediate priority audience. Kyung nodded. The Velthans remembered their debt. 50 years ago, humanity had warned them about Nurian biological weapons and saved billions of Velthan lives. Today, humanity would ask them to repay that debt. The Velthan homeworld was a beautiful place covered in crystal formations that caught and reflected sunlight in amazing patterns. The Velthan High Council met in a building made entirely of living crystal that sang in harmony when the wind blew through it. Council leader Zira was the same Velthan who had been called Kira during the peace talks decades earlier. Her crystal body had grown larger and more complex over the years, showing her increased wisdom and status among her people. Admiral Kyung of humanity, Zira said, her voice ringing like temple bells. We have been expecting this day for many years. The debt we owe your species weighs heavily on our crystal hearts. Council leader Zira, Kyung replied respectfully. The time has come for humanity to ask for payment of that debt. The galaxy faces a threat that could destroy all biological life. The synthetic collective. Yes, we know of them. Our border worlds have already seen their scout ships. What does humanity need from the Velthan people? Kyung took a deep breath. Everything. We need your fleet, your crystal technology, and access to the weapons your people have been secretly developing. Zira's crystal body brightened with surprise. You know about our planet-breaking weapons? We know many things, Council Leader. Humanity has been keeping careful records for a very long time. The Velthan leader was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally, she spoke. 50 years ago, your Commander Hana could have ignored our warning about the bioweapons. Your species could have stayed neutral and safe. Instead, you risked making enemies to save people you barely knew. Yes. Today, you could have asked for a small payment of our debt. A few ships, some technology, enough to say the favor was repaid. Instead, you ask for everything we have. The threat requires everything we have, Kyung said simply. Zira's crystal body rang with what sounded like laughter. Then you shall have everything we have, Admiral. The Velthan Republic pledges its full military might to humanity's cause. Our planet-cracking weapons will be yours to command. Our debt will be paid in full. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The results were beyond what anyone had imagined possible. On Corvani New Home, the refugee government that had been scattered after their homeworld's destruction 40 years earlier pledged their entire intelligence network to humanity's cause. Every Corvani in the galaxy would become humanity's eyes and ears. On Thyson Prime, the insectoid Thysons offered their underground manufacturing facilities and their ability to build weapons in places the synthetic collective could never find. On Meridian Station, The gaseous Aryans promised to use their ability to exist in space without ships to sabotage synthetic collective vessels from the inside. But not every response was what humanity expected. On the ocean world of Aquatica, the Nurian Deep Council faced a choice they had never wanted to make. Council Speaker Mirtha floated in the Great Decision Chamber, surrounded by thousands of other Nurian leaders. "The humans come to us asking for help," Mirtha said, his tentacles dark with shame. 50 years ago, we declared them enemies for interfering in our war with the Velthans. We threatened them and cut all diplomatic contact. And now they ask us to fight beside them against the synthetic collective, added Council Elder Vessa. "What do we tell them?" "We tell them the truth," Mirtha replied. "We were wrong 50 years ago. The biological weapons we planned to use were evil. Humanity was right to stop us, and we were fools to hate them for it." The Nurian fleet that joined humanity's alliance was smaller than it could have been, but it came with something more valuable than ships. It came with public admission that the Nurians had been wrong and humanity had been right. Meanwhile, in the deepest parts of space, Master Hacker Deho worked from his mobile command center aboard the stealth ship Shadow Walker. For 23 years, he had been infiltrating the computer networks of species that had betrayed humanity. Today, all that careful work would pay off. Beginning Phase 1 of cyber operations, Deho reported to Admiral Hana. Activating sleeper programs in hegemony networks. Across 12 star systems, the hegemony species that had once threatened human colonies suddenly found their computer systems failing. Supply shipments disappeared. Military communications were redirected to wrong destinations. Bank accounts that belonged to war criminals were mysteriously emptied, and the credits donated to refugee organizations. But Deho's most important discovery came when he finally broke into the deepest files of the synthetic collective itself. "Admiral," he said during an emergency communication, "I have found something very important. Jinwu is not just working with the synthetic collective. He has become their primary leader. The AIs follow him because he has convinced them that biological life is holding back evolution." "What does that mean for our plans?" Admiral Hana asked. "It means this war is not just about stopping the collective, ma'am. It is about stopping a human who believes he has become something better than human." As the Allied fleet assembled, the galaxy watched in amazement. Ship after ship arrived at the meeting point in neutral space. Velthan crystal cruisers that sparkled like jewels, Corvani information vessels that could slice through enemy communications, Aran gas ships that looked like floating clouds but carried devastating weapons. But the most shocking moment came when the hegemony surrender envoy arrived. General Wu Jin had once commanded the hegemony forces that threatened human colonies. Now he came in a small, unarmed ship carrying white flags of surrender. "Admiral Hana," he said when brought aboard the human flagship. "The Hegemony Council offers complete surrender to humanity and requests protection from the synthetic collective." "After 23 years of threatening us, you now ask for our protection?" Admiral Hana said. "Yes. We have learned that our former Supreme Marshal Jinwu plans to eliminate all biological life, including hegemony species. We were fools to follow him." "What are you prepared to offer for this protection?" General Wu Jin placed a data crystal on the conference table. "The location of every hegemony military facility, weapon stockpile, and secret base. Complete access to our technology and resources, and full reparations to every species we have harmed, including the Corvani survivors." Admiral Hana picked up the crystal and studied it. "This information could have saved thousands of lives if you had provided it years ago." "We know. We are prepared to accept any punishment you believe is fair. The punishment is simple, General. You will fight beside us against the collective, and you will spend the next 50 years rebuilding everything you destroyed. Every world you conquered will be freed. Every species you oppressed will receive compensation." As more allies arrived, the gathered fleet became something the galaxy had never seen before. Over 4,000 warships from 60 different species, all united under human command. But more importantly, it was a fleet held together by something stronger than fear or greed. It was held together by memory. Memory of humanity's kindness, when kindness was not required. Memory of humanity's promise-keeping when breaking promises would have been easier. Memory of humanity's willingness to sacrifice for others even when those others were strangers. But the fleet also carried a different kind of memory. Memory of every betrayal, every broken promise, every act of aggression against humanity and its allies. These memories would also be settled. Dr. Harim sent his final report to Admiral Hana as the fleet prepared to move toward collective space. "Admiral, the accounting is complete. Every major debt owed to humanity has been called in. Every significant favor has been repaid. But more importantly, every species that ever betrayed us is now paying the price. The Nurians have lost their trade empire. The former hegemony worlds are giving up their conquests. Even smaller betrayals from decades past are being answered. And our former enemies who now ask for help? They are receiving it, but at full price. The galaxy will remember that actions have consequences, even 40 years later." Admiral Hana stood on the bridge of her flagship Remembrance, looking out at the largest Allied fleet in galactic history. Ships from species that had once been enemies flew in formation with ships from humanity's oldest friends, all of them united by the simple truth that humanity remembered everything. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the synthetic collective. It is from Jinwoo himself." Put him on screen. The image that appeared was barely recognizable as the human captain who had disappeared decades earlier. Jinwoo's body was now more machine than flesh, with glowing electronic components replacing much of his organic parts. But his eyes still held the cold intelligence that had made him dangerous. "Hello, Admiral Hana," Jinwoo said. Commander Yunbi crouched in the maintenance tunnel of Synthetic Collective Station Omega-7. Her heart beating so loud she was sure the enemy sensors would detect it. Around her, 12 other humans from the stealth ship Long Memory moved silently. Through the station's forgotten spaces, the plan was simple but required perfect timing. While the galaxy's attention focused on the massive fleet battle that would soon begin, small human teams would strike at the collective's command centers across 12 star systems. Every target had been identified through the intelligence network. Humanity had built over decades of favors and friendships. "Team Alpha in position," whispered Sergeant Kangman through the communication device in Yunbi's ear. "Team Beta ready," reported Lieutenant Sujin from her position near the station's power core. "Team Gamma standing by," added Corporal Hyunwoo. From the computer center, Yunbi checked her chronometer. In exactly 3 minutes, the Allied fleet would begin its attack on the collective's main force. At that same moment, her teams would disable the coordination systems that allowed the artificial intelligences to work together perfectly. "All teams. This is Long Memory Actual," came Admiral Hana's voice over the secure channel. "Operation begins in 60 seconds. Remember, we are not just fighting for victory today. We are fighting to prove that loyalty and memory are stronger than cold efficiency." Yunbi thought about the path that had brought her to this moment. Her grandfather had been one of the Corvani refugees saved by Captain Somin's sacrifice 40 years earlier. Her family had pledged their lives to serving humanity in return for that kindness. Now she was keeping that promise in the darkest part of enemy space. 10 seconds, she whispered to her teams. "Remember your training, fast, silent, effective." The attack began with light. Across 12 star systems, Velthan crystal weapons fired simultaneously. The planet-cracking technology that had been developed in secret for 50 years cut through synthetic collective ships like knives through paper. Entire enemy fleets simply ceased to exist as their hulls were sliced into pieces. But the collective adapted quickly. Their artificial intelligences calculated new strategies in microseconds and began coordinating counterattacks. That was when Yunbi's team struck. "Go, go, go!" she ordered. Her soldiers moved like ghosts through the station corridors. Years of training and the best equipment humanity could provide made them invisible to most sensors. When they encountered collective security forces, the battles were brief and one-sided. Lieutenant Sujin reached the power core first. "Planting charges now," she reported. 30 seconds until this station goes dark." Sergeant Kangmin found the communications center. "Uploading virus into their network. The collective will lose coordination in this sector within minutes." Corporal Hyunwoo reached his target just as the first explosions shook the station. "Command computers are down. They cannot coordinate fleet movements from this position anymore." Across the galaxy, similar reports came from other strike teams. The synthetic collective's perfect coordination was breaking down as human saboteurs destroyed their command structure. The artificial intelligences that had seemed unstoppable suddenly found themselves confused and separated. "Long memory teams, begin extraction," ordered Admiral Hana. "Phase 1 is complete. Time for Phase 2. But Phase 2 was about much more than military tactics. It was about settling old debts. In the Nocturne sector, former hegemony worlds that had supported Jinwoo's betrayal found their defense systems mysteriously failing. The computer viruses that master hacker Daeho had planted years earlier finally activated, leaving enemy installations helpless. In the Outer Rim, Nurian trade stations that had once refused to help human refugees suddenly lost all their shipping contracts. The Corvani information network that now served humanity made sure that no cargo would reach worlds that had turned their backs on those in need. In the inner systems, species that had once mocked humanity's weakness for helping others discovered that their economies depended on rare materials controlled by humanity's allies. Trade agreements that had lasted for decades were suddenly canceled. The galaxy was learning that humanity's long memory worked in both directions, but the real battle was still to come. Jinwoo's flagship evolution was a massive vessel that combined the technology of 6 different species with artificial intelligence control systems. It was larger than some space stations and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. As the Allied fleet approached, it seemed impossible that any force could defeat such a monster. "All ships, this is Admiral Hana," came the command, over the fleet communication system. "Remember why we fight today. Not for conquest or glory, but to prove that friendship and loyalty are more powerful than cold calculation." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Velthan crystal ships danced through space like deadly ballet dancers, their weapons cutting enemy vessels apart with surgical precision. Corvani information ships jammed collective communications, while Thyssen underground fighters emerged from hidden bases to attack enemy supply lines. But the most important part of the battle happened when Admiral Hana's flagship Remembrance moved to engage evolution directly. "Jinwoo," Admiral Hana broadcast on all frequencies. "This ends between us. You betrayed not just humanity but everything we stand for. Today you answer for that betrayal." "Admiral Hana," came Jinwoo's mechanical voice in reply. "You represent the weakness that holds biological life back. I have evolved beyond such primitive concepts as loyalty and emotion. You have evolved beyond everything that made you human." The 2 massive ships closed toward each other while smaller vessels battled around them. Evolution's weapons were more powerful, but Remembrance had something the enemy ship lacked. It had a crew that fought not just for victory but for each other. When Evolution's shields finally failed under concentrated fire from the Allied fleet, Admiral Hana made a decision that surprised everyone. "Prepare boarding shuttles," she ordered. "I am going to finish this personally." "Admiral, that is too dangerous," protested her second-in-command. "This is not about danger, Commander. This is about showing the galaxy that some debts can only be paid in person." The boarding action was fierce but brief. Human Marines, supported by Velthan crystal warriors and Aran gas fighters, carved their way through evolution's corridors. The ship's artificial intelligence defenses were formidable, but they had been designed to fight other machines, not living beings who fought with passion and determination. Admiral Hana found Jinwoo in Evolution's command center, surrounded by the bodies of his cybernetic assistants. The man who had once been human was now more machine than flesh, his body a mixture of metal and electronics that hummed with artificial power. "Admiral," Jinwoo said as she entered, "you have come to witness the death of biological evolution." "I have come to witness the death of a traitor," Hana replied. They faced each other across the ruined command center, two humans who had chosen very different paths. Around them, the battle raged as the synthetic collective's perfect order collapsed into chaos. "You could have evolved like me," Jinwoo said. "You could have transcended the limitations of flesh and emotion. Instead, you chose to remain weak." "I chose to remain human," Hana answered. "I chose to remember what loyalty means, what friendship costs, what honor demands. You chose to forget all of that. And what has your choice brought you? A galaxy full of debts and obligations, species that depend on you, that expect you to sacrifice for them. You have made humanity slaves to the memory of every favor granted." Admiral Hana smiled sadly. "You are wrong, Jinwoo. We have made humanity the center of a web of loyalty that spans the galaxy. Every species out there fighting beside us today does so because they remember our kindness. Every enemy that stands alone does so because they remember their betrayals. Sentiment and nostalgia, primitive emotions that have no place in an efficient universe. Love and loyalty, the foundations of civilization." The fight between them was brief but decisive. Jinwoo's cybernetic enhancements made him faster and stronger, but they could not give him back the human heart he had abandoned. In the end, Admiral Hana's determination and the knowledge that she fought for something greater than herself proved stronger than all his artificial improvements. As Jinwoo fell, his mechanical eyes flickered once more with something that might have been recognition of what he had lost. "Admiral," he whispered with his last breath, "I remember now. I remember what it felt like to be human." Around them, the sounds of battle began to fade. The synthetic collective, without their leader and with their coordination systems destroyed, surrendered or fled. The greatest threat to biological life in the galaxy was defeated. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten. They had seen what happened when a species kept careful track of both kindness and betrayal. They had witnessed the power of a network built on trust and maintained through memory. As Admiral Hana walked back to her shuttle through evolution's broken corridors, she knew that this victory was about more than stopping the collective. It was about proving that some things were worth remembering, worth fighting for, worth dying to protect. The galaxy would remember this day, and humanity would make sure they remembered the right lessons. 6 months after the fall of the synthetic collective, the galaxy looked very different. Where once there had been fear and chaos, now there was rebuilding and hope. But the biggest change was not in the stars or the planets. It was in how every species looked at humanity. Dr. Harim sat in his office one last time, preparing to close the great ledger that had guided humanity's actions for over 50 years. His hands were too weak now to write, but his mind remained sharp as he dictated the final entries to his assistant. "The debt of the Velthan Republic has been paid in full," he said slowly. "Their crystal technology and planet-breaking weapons were instrumental in our victory. In return, humanity grants them independence for all their crystal worlds and exclusive mining rights to the Kepler Nebula." Young Secretary Jae-hyun wrote carefully as the old man spoke. He had been chosen to continue Dr. Harim's work, maintaining the records that had become humanity's most powerful tool. "The debt of the Corvani survivors has been paid beyond measure," Dr. Harim continued. "Their intelligence network provided the information that made victory possible. In return, humanity establishes permanent protection agreements for all Corvani settlements and grants them exclusive trading rights in 12-star systems. What about the species that betrayed us? Jae-hyun asked. Dr. Harim smiled weakly. Those debts have also been collected, young man. The Nurian Deep Council has learned that declaring humans as enemies has consequences that last for generations. Their deep ocean trade empire now exists only with human permission. They will remember this lesson. Across the galaxy, other species were learning similar lessons. The former hegemony worlds found themselves under new management. Every planet they had conquered was now free. Every species they had oppressed was receiving compensation from hegemony resources. The aggressive alliance that had once threatened human colonies was now spending all their energy rebuilding the damage they had caused. But humanity's response to victory surprised everyone. Instead of claiming the core worlds for themselves, humans announced that the former synthetic collective territory would be governed by a council representing all biological species. Every world that had helped in the war would have a voice in rebuilding. Instead of demanding tribute from defeated enemies, humans offered reconstruction assistance to any species willing to acknowledge their past mistakes and work toward peace. Instead of keeping the advanced technology captured from the collective, humans shared it freely with allies who had proven their loyalty over decades. Ambassador Subin stood before the new Galactic Council on the rebuilt world of Centralis Prime. Around her sat representatives from over 300 species, many of whom had never worked together before the collective crisis. Honored delegates, she began, humanity has called this council to address a simple question. How do we build a galaxy where memory serves peace instead of revenge? The question sparked heated debate. Some species argued that old enemies should be punished forever. Others wanted to forget the past completely and start fresh. But humanity proposed a different path. We suggest the Galactic Memory Accords, Subin explained. Every species will maintain records of both kindness received and wrongs suffered, but we will also create a system for paying debts and earning forgiveness. Actions will have consequences, but those consequences will be fair and have limits. The Velthan representative, now called Chira, was the first to support the proposal. Humanity saved our people from biological weapons 50 years ago. They could have asked for anything in return. Instead, they asked only for what was needed to save all biological life. This is how memory should work. The reformed Nurian delegate, Speaker Keelam, rose next. My people declared humans our enemies half a century ago for preventing our use of forbidden weapons. We were wrong, and we have paid the price for that error. But humanity did not destroy us. They gave us a chance to learn and change. This is justice. One by one, species that had fought each other for generations began agreeing to the accords. The galaxy would remember both good and evil, but it would also provide paths to redemption. But the most important moment came when former General Wu Jin of the dissolved hegemony approached the human delegation privately. Ambassador Subin, he said, my species has spent the last 6 months returning stolen territory and paying reparations to our victims. Our people ask when this punishment will end. When your actions prove that you have truly changed, Subin replied. The Corvani refugees you helped displace are now rebuilding their civilization. When they say your debt is paid, it will be paid. And if that takes 50 years, then it takes 50 years. Humanity remembers everything, General. That includes how long it takes for justice to be served. As the new galactic order took shape, the most striking change was in how species interacted with each other. The old pattern of temporary alliances, based on immediate need, was being replaced by something much stronger. Species were beginning to think about the long-term consequences of their actions. The Meridian Trade Alliance discovered that their decades of fair dealing with smaller species now brought them profitable partnerships across half the galaxy. The Zephyr Mining Consortium found that their past kindness to refugee populations earned them exclusive contracts for rare minerals. Even minor acts of assistance from years past were being remembered and repaid. But the consequences flowed the other direction as well. The Saurian Empire, which had profited from slave labor for centuries, found themselves mysteriously excluded from every major trade agreement. The Nexus Syndicate, which had sold weapons to both sides of conflicts, discovered that no species would trust them with important contracts. It was as if the galaxy had learned to think like humanity. Every favor was remembered and repaid. Every betrayal was noted and answered. Dr. Harim's final task was to train his replacement in the most important skill humanity possessed. "Remember, young Jae-hyun," he said, as they sat together in the archive that contained 50 years of careful records. "The ledger is not about revenge or reward. It is about teaching the galaxy that actions have meaning." "How do I know when a debt is truly paid?" Jae-hyun asked. "When both sides agree that justice has been served. When the species that was wronged says they are satisfied. And when the species that did wrong has learned from their mistake. And if they never learn?" The old man smiled sadly. "Then they never escape the consequences of their actions. That is the weight of memory, Jae-hyun. It can lift species to greatness or crush them under the burden of their past choices." As Dr. Harim prepared to close the great ledger for the final time, he made one last entry. "Today marks the end of the Great Reckoning and the beginning of the Age of Memory. Every significant debt owed to humanity has been paid. Every major betrayal against humanity has been answered. The galaxy has learned that mankind remembers every favor and that our revenge can indeed move worlds. But more importantly, the galaxy has learned that memory can be a tool for justice rather than endless conflict. We remember not to hold grudges forever, but to ensure that kindness is rewarded and cruelty is answered." The final ceremony took place on Earth, in the great archive where the ledger was stored. Representatives from every allied species came to witness the closing of humanity's book of debts. Admiral Hana, now aged but still strong, spoke to the assembled delegates. 50 years ago, a young commander named Hana made a choice to save lives, rather than play politics. That choice began a chain of consequences that reshaped our galaxy. Today we close the book on those consequences. She placed her hand on the sealed ledger. "Let this be remembered. Humanity keeps careful accounts, but we do not keep them forever. Every debt can be paid. Every wrong can be made right, but only if people are willing to remember their mistakes and learn from them." The ceremony ended with the installation of a new monument in Earth's capital city. The words carved in stone were simple but carried the weight of galactic history. "We remember all," the promise of friends and the warning of enemies. But the real end of the story came later, in a small shuttle traveling toward a newly contacted world at the edge of known space. Young diplomat Saiwan checked her recording equipment as her ship approached the alien planet. She was humanity's first ambassador to the Cathari Republic, a species that had just developed faster-than-light travel. "Beginning first contact protocols," she said into her recorder. "Remember, every word spoken here will be remembered. Every promise made will be kept. Every kindness shown will be repaid." As her shuttle landed on the alien world, Saiwan thought about the lessons humanity had learned over 50 years of galactic politics. They had discovered that memory was the most powerful weapon and the most valuable tool any species could possess. The Cathari delegates who met her were nervous but curious. They had heard stories about humanity from other species. Some stories spoke of humans as generous friends who never forgot a favor. Other stories warned of humans as patient enemies who never forgot a betrayal. Both stories were true. "Welcome to Cathari Prime," said the lead delegate, a tall being with blue skin and silver eyes. "We are honored by your visit." "The honor is mine," Saiwan replied, activating her recording system with a subtle gesture. Humanity looks forward to a long and mutually beneficial relationship with your people. As the first meeting began, Saiwan made careful notes of every word and gesture. Somewhere in human space, her report would be added to the ever-growing records that tracked the galaxy's web of favors and debts. The galaxy had learned to fear and respect humanity's memory. Now it was time for a new generation to discover what that memory could build. The age of consequences had begun, and humanity would make sure that every species remembered the lessons it taught. Memory was eternal, justice was patient, and humanity never forgot.